Donaldson, the help of our entire lab team, as well as the immense help from our graduate mentor, Laura Grace Rollins. So my thesis was entitled Enriched Pre-Weaning Environment as an Intervention for Neonatal Hypoxic Ischemic Injury in Long evidence rats. Yes, that's what it's titled. All right, so I'm just going to give you an overview of what I'll be talking about. I'll go over an introduction, which will include some background, like what is HI, the prevalence, outcomes. Then I'll go into the methods, what we did, how we induced the injury, the testing we did, and then go through the results, through our findings, and to the discussion, how we interpreted those findings. So what is HI? Hypoxic ischemic injury is a severe form of white matter damage, and this results from birth asphyxia. So this is in term infants, which is 37 weeks and above. So this birth asphyxia can be in many different ways in utero. This is things like placental insufficiency, maternal hemorrhage, stroke, infection, inflammation. So you can see in this picture right here where the clot happens, that stops the blood supply to the area of the brain. So this white matter damage minimizes the cerebral blood flow, like that picture showed, to the fetus, and this results in oxygen deprivation. So defects in this white matter damage are motor defects, cognitive defects, and as well as behavioral defects. So how often does this happen? There's definitely a heightened susceptibility by fetal stressors, such as malnutrition and also maternal drug and alcohol abuse. So this will happen in 1 to 8 out of every 1,000 live births, so that's pretty common. Mortality rates, though, in severe cases it's 60%, and then in moderate cases it's 10%. So brain areas of where you see the atrophy from the brain damage. Necrotic and apoptotic cell death is seen in the hypothalamus, which in this specific case shows fear response. That's where we'll want to see. And the amygdala is involved in processing memory. The hippocampus is involved in spatial learning and memory, which you'll see a lot of throughout the testing that I describe later. And also the substantia nigra, which is involved in motor control. So another process that's affected is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or HPA axis. So this HI impacts this process by having an improper regulation of stress response, and that influences the glucocorticoid secretion. So if you see in this picture, a normal process, stress would induce each brain area to secrete different hormones, resulting in the glucocorticoid secretion. And so the most crucial time is the first week of life that proper influence has to happen to be able to appropriate the maturation of the stress response, or the HPA axis. So outcomes. Long term, there are effects on the central nervous system. These are things like cerebral palsy, epilepsy, as well as intellectual disability. Cerebral palsy is definitely the one that's most commonly looked at in past research, and this is a term for collective disorders of the nervous system, and those lead to problems with motor coordination and memory, learning, and retrieving. So in this past research, what's looked at is the neuroplasticity during the injury. So higher maternal licking and grooming activity, or LGA, will result in less fearfulness and also a diminutive stress response in adulthood. So what you see is enhanced maternal care will increase the ability of the pups to deal with future stressors throughout life. So why change the environment as an intervention technique? So mothers in a safer environment, which would, in this case, would be a closed next box, which you will see in future slides, that the mother feeling safe will pay more attention to the pups, and this will increase the LGA, or licking and grooming activity, and that will benefit the pups in functional and molecular components of the offspring's central nervous system. So just to show you the difference, an average animal facility, you'll see, even in this picture, you can kind of see that the mother is a little on edge. Some external forces are coming in and she's not paying attention as much to her pups. Whereas in a closed nest box environment, she will feel safer, she knows where they are, there's not stressors happening, and this is, we're hypothesizing that this nest box will make the mothers feel safer and they will participate more in licking and grooming behavior. So in this study, our animal model did use Long Evans rats. We had 4 litters. The first was a control group where we did perform a unilateral carotid artery ligation, which I'll talk about more specifically in a moment. So this litter was more practice to be able to train our team and to practice on the surgery as well as the oxygen deprivation. And then litters B and C, they had the unilateral carotid artery ligation as well as an oxygen deprivation, and this was followed up by being placed in the regular animal, the normal animal facility environment. Then finally, litter D was, they did have the unilateral carotid artery ligation as well as oxygen deprivation, but then this litter was placed in an environment with a closed nest box. So, how did we induce the injury? So, we used Levine's unilateral ligation of the carotid artery in rodents, which you can see a picture. The common carotid artery was ligated on the right side. And then this was followed up by using oxygen deprivation using a hypoxia chamber at 92% nitrogen and 8% oxygen. And so each was 90 minutes long after the surgery. So in testing, first of all, we did an overall reflex battery. This was between postnatal day 8 and 21. So this is what they looked like during that time. Very cute. So this was looking at things like eye opening, ear unfolding, incisor eruption, eye and ear twitch, fore and hind limb grasp, startle reflex, and negative geotaxis. Negative geotaxis is just a slanted board. They were placed upside down in the middle, and they would be tested to see how long it took them to get to the top. They'd have to turn around and get to the top. After 30 seconds, if they hadn't made it with both paws on the top, that would be considered a fail. The other testing we did, first locomotor activity chamber, which, as you can kind of see the box right here, there are 4 of them, and we did 3 to 4 at a time, and this would track vertical counts as well as total movement throughout the bottom. As you can kind of see, this diagram shows what it would track. And vertical counts are when they're rearing on their hind legs, showing fearlessness. Also, we used Morris water maze, which this picture kind of shows the difference between when they first start in the Morris water maze, where they can't find, right here is the platform. So at first they're having a lot of trouble finding this platform, and after subsequent trials, they will find it quicker. And this is with their spatial learning and memory. So in the study, the hypotheses, most generally the closed nesting environment or closed nest box would have more pup-directed behavior via the mother. So this would result in that closed nest box pups will have less stress response in the locomotor activity, and they would also have a quicker escape time in the Morris water maze, so they'd find the platform in less time. And then also pups reared in the closed nest box environment would have less brain atrophy. So this would show that in the hippocampus especially there would be less damage. So that would be associated with spatial learning and memory. And you'll see that in the Morris water maze testing. So overall, I just wanted to show you the study timeline. So on the bottom you'll see the days, and you'll see where we did the reflex battery, and then 3 days that we did the locomotor activity chamber, and then Morris Water Maze was towards the end. So the beginning was the visible platform challenge days in the Morris Water Maze, and then the end was invisible platform. So that just means that the platform was a little out of the water in the beginning, and then we put it under so it was invisible. So forthcoming, we did harvest tissue. We removed the brains and blood, and so the brains were removed to be able to perform a Nissl stain. So this was post-live decapitation. And then also the trunk blood was collected to be able to determine plasma corticosterone levels in stress. So the Nissl stain, this will be used, Cresol violet solution will be used and differentiated with ethyl alcohol. So this will show, as you can see, areas like specifically the hippocampus where it's more atrophied. So as far as data analysis, for the early reflex battery, we did an independent samples t-test. For negative geotaxis, the slanted board, we did univariate general linear model. For the Morris Water Maze and locomotor activity, we did the general linear model with repeated measures. So this had the primary independent variables as housing and sex. And so with the locomotor activity, like I said, we gathered information or data for to compare ambulatory distance as well as ambulatory count and vertical counts. So we used SPSS as the statistical software package, version 20, and we set the significance at 0.05. So the results in reflex battery, where we saw significance was the ear unfolding, left eye opening, left ear twitch, and startle. So the most significance was in the ear unfolding and left eye opening, and that was at 0.000. And then we saw in startle, it was 0.005, and in left ear twitch, it was 0.03. In Morris Water Maze, overall, in the invisible platform challenge days, we saw that females displayed a quicker escape time in 4 out of the 5 days. So the bottom axis represents each challenge day, 1 through 5, and on the left you'll see the time. So all but day 4, you can see females had a quicker escape time. So this, let's talk about why that may be in minutes. So, and then the results in locomotor activity were mainly in vertical counts, and this was not expected, but the control group had higher vertical counts on each day. So you can see the green represents the control group. So you can see on 17, these are days, so 17, 21, and 24, they each had higher vertical counts in the control group. And that was on each of the days tested. So what does this mean? In reflex battery, the closed nest box group having an earlier date of appearance for left eye opening, ear twitch, ear unfolding, negative geotaxis, and startle reflex. This confirms that the intervention can help in the reversal of the injury, and this is in reflex and behavioral development with the injury. And then also the date of appearance being later on the right side in the facial reflexes, and this was for both groups, actually signifies the development was overall slower on the right side with all of the animals, and this agrees with research in that cranial nerve palsy is a possible outcome of internal carotid artery ligation or dissection. And then in Morris Water Maze, as I discussed, that females had a quicker average escape time in the invisible platform days. This agrees with past research in that gonadal hormones, in this case estradiol, is involved with neuronal development. So this promotes positive spatial navigation behavior in that having a quicker escape time meant they had